Did you know that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny lost Disney a staggering $134.2 million at the box office? That's a shocking fall from grace for a franchise that once dominated Hollywood, with Raiders of the Lost Ark becoming 1981's highest-grossing film. How did a series that gave us some of cinema's most iconic moments end up here? From de-aging technology that cost millions, to time-traveling plot twists that left audiences confused. This is the story of how Indiana Jones lost its way and how one of Hollywood's greatest adventure franchises went from uncovering ancient treasures to buried dreams. The Indiana Jones saga began as a loving tribute to the adventure serials of the 1930s, with Harrison Ford's charismatic archaeologist becoming an instant cultural icon. But by 2023, the franchise had transformed into something barely recognizable, trading mystical religious artifacts for time travel, swapping practical effects for CGI, and turning our beloved hero into a shell of his former self. Before we dive into the 7 crucial mistakes that derailed this legendary franchise, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to catch all our deep dives into cinema's most fascinating franchises. Now, let's explore what really went wrong with Indiana Jones. Reason number 1. Abandoning the franchise's core identity. Let's start with the franchise's biggest misstep, straying from what made Indiana Jones special in the first place. The original trilogy wasn't just about finding artifacts, it was about faith, religion, and the mystical colliding with archaeology. Raiders of the Lost Ark dealt with the power of God through the Ark of the Covenant. Temple of Doom explored dark religious cults. The Last Crusade centered on the Holy Grail and literally required a leap of faith. Yet, with each new entry, the franchise drifted further from these foundations. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull suddenly introduced aliens and interdimensional beings, while Dial of Destiny completely abandoned religious artifacts altogether in favor of a time-traveling device. This fundamental shift didn't just change the types of adventures Indy went on, it altered the very soul of the franchise. The original films understood that the religious and mystical elements weren't just plot devices, they were what gave Indiana Jones its sense of wonder and greater purpose. When Indy kneels before the Grail in The Last Crusade, it's not just about finding a magical cup, it's about faith, redemption, and choosing wisely. By moving away from these themes, the later films lost the spiritual weight that made the originals transcend simple adventure movies. Reason number 2. The CGI problem. Perhaps nothing exemplifies the franchise's decline more than its shift from practical effects to CGI. The original trilogy was renowned for its groundbreaking practical stunts and effects. Remember that truck chase in Raiders? Those were real vehicles with real stuntmen. The minecart chase in Temple of Doom? Practical miniatures combined with real sets. By the time we reach Crystal Skull, we get CGI gophers, digital ants, and Shia LaBeouf swinging through the jungle with CGI monkeys. Dial of Destiny opens with a 25-minute de-aged Harrison Ford sequence that, while technically impressive, feels artificial and weightless. The raw, physical danger that made the original action sequences so thrilling have been replaced by computer-generated spectacle. The over-reliance on CGI doesn't just make the action less engaging, it fundamentally changes how scenes are conceived and shot. Gone are the clever practical solutions that gave the originals their unique charm. Instead, we get action sequences that feel like they could belong in any modern blockbuster. Reason number 3. The time period problem. One of the most overlooked issues with the later Indiana Jones films is how they handled the passage of time. The original trilogy was set in the late 1930s, a period deliberately chosen to capture the pulp adventure spirit of the era. It was a time when the world still held mysteries, when undiscovered temples could still exist, and when the threat of Nazis gave our hero clear-cut villains to punch in the face. But as the franchise moved forward, it struggled with its timeline. Crystal Skull jumped to the 1950s, swapping Nazis for Soviets and ancient temples for Area 51. Dial of Destiny pushed even further to 1969, landing squarely in the space age. The problem isn't that Indiana Jones got older, it's that the world he inhabited changed so fundamentally. In an era of satellite mapping and space exploration, the idea of undiscovered ancient wonders becomes harder to believe. The franchise's solution? Go bigger and more outlandish. Instead of lost cities, we get interdimensional beings. Instead of religious artifacts, we get time travel. The further the series moved from its original era, the more it lost touch with what made Indiana Jones work in the first place. Reason number 4. The legacy character problem. Modern Hollywood has developed this weird habit of bringing back beloved characters only to deconstruct them, and Indiana Jones hasn't escaped this trend. The Indy we meet in Dial of Destiny is a shadow of his former self. bitter, alone, and questioning his life's work. While showing character growth is important, the franchise seems to have confused character development with character destruction. Look at how the franchise handled Indy's relationships. His marriage to Marion, which was triumphantly rekindled in The Crystal Skull, is dissolved off-screen in Dial of Destiny. His son Mutt is killed off between films. Even his academic career, a core part of his identity, is reduced to a retirement party punchline. This isn't character development, it's dismantling everything that makes the character iconic. The original Indiana Jones was an aspirational figure who combined scholarly knowledge with physical prowess and ethical principles with roguish charm. By the end of the franchise, he's reduced to a man who needs to be saved by his goddaughter while contemplating staying in the past to die. It's a disappointing end for a character who once proclaimed, "Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory." Reason number 5. The escalation trap. Every new entry in the Indiana Jones franchise felt compelled to up the ante, creating an unsustainable pattern of escalation. Raiders began with the supernatural power of the Ark. Temple of Doom had to add human sacrifice and dark magic. The Last Crusade raised the stakes with immortality through the Holy Grail. By the time we reached the Crystal Skull, we had aliens and interdimensional beings. Dial of Destiny went even further with its time travel and the power to literally change history. This constant need to go bigger ultimately made the adventures feel smaller. When you can travel through time or meet interdimensional beings, finding an ancient artifact just doesn't have the same impact. Not to mention, the religious artifacts all had something to do with Indiana's character, like the wisdom not to open the Ark of the Covenant, while these new problems are too big to be personal. The escalation didn't just affect the artifacts, though. It infected every aspect of the films. Action sequences became more elaborate but less believable. Villains became more cartoonish but less memorable. The humble beginnings of a professor who moonlighted as an adventurer were replaced by world-ending stakes that felt really out of place in an Indiana Jones film. Reason number 6. Losing the sense of discovery. One of the most magical elements of the original Indiana Jones films was the sense of genuine archaeological discovery. Remember the detailed explanation of the Staff of Ra in Raiders? Or the careful solving of the Grail Diaries clues in Last Crusade? These moments made us feel like we were uncovering real historical mysteries. The later films largely abandoned this attention to archaeological detail. Crystal Skull's artifacts felt more like sci-fi props than historical treasures. Dial of Destiny's Archimedes dial, while based on a real historical device, was transformed into a magical time-traveling machine with barely any explanation of its actual historical significance, making it feel like just another glowing MacGuffin from a Marvel movie. This shift didn't just make the films less educational, it made them less engaging. Part of what made Indiana Jones special was how it balanced fantastical elements with just enough real history to make the adventures feel grounded. When that balance tipped too far into fantasy, something crucial was lost. Reason number 7. The supporting cast problem. The original Indiana Jones films understood the importance of memorable supporting characters. Marion Ravenwood was a fierce equal to Indy. Sala brought warmth and loyalty. Henry Jones Sr. created one of cinema's greatest father-son dynamics. These weren't just sidekicks, they were fully realized characters who enhanced Indiana's adventures. The later films struggled to create equally compelling companions. Mutt Williams in Crystal Skull felt like a forced attempt to set up a successor. Helena Shaw in Dial of Destiny, despite Phoebe Waller-Bridge's talents, came across as a modern character awkwardly inserted into Indy's world. The chemistry that made the original partnership so special was notably absent. Even worse was how the franchise treated its returning characters. Marion's relationship with Indy was dismantled off-screen. Sala's brief cameo in Dial of Destiny felt more like fan service than a meaningful reunion. These decisions didn't just disappoint fans, they undermined the emotional core that made the original films resonate. So what could have saved the franchise? So what lessons can we learn from this franchise's decline? First, stay true to your foundations. Indiana Jones worked best when it balanced supernatural elements with historical archaeology, practical effects with movie magic, and character development with heroic adventure. Second, respect your time period. Setting the film in the late 1930s wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was fundamental to the type of stories Indiana Jones could tell. Moving the timeline forward required changes that ultimately hurt the franchise's identity. Third, evolution does not mean abandonment. The franchise could have grown while keeping its core elements intact. Instead of aliens and time travel, imagine stories that continue to explore religious and historical mysteries. Instead of deconstructing Indy's character, imagine showing how his wisdom and experience enhanced his adventures. So what do you think? Which Indiana Jones sequel strayed furthest from what made the original so special? And what's your favorite moment from the franchise? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more. This video was made by movie fans, for movie fans.